It's now July. Betty is due to be at a Ford show in a couple of days. Ian, HubNut, you know, because that's why you're watching this, he's either in Netherlands or he's just got back from Netherlands, whatever. Betty is still here. Why is Betty still here? Been waiting for this to travel around the world. A rear transmission servo cover gasket. That is what I think is leaking on Betty. You can't get them in the UK. So, yeah, that's taken a long time to order, a long time to come in from the other side of the world. Do you remember in the Betty Diaries, the 5th one, where I did like a little interview with him and I said, what's one of the issues in running this car in the UK? Parts. That was the issue. Well, yes, there it is. That's been here. He did have some parts in the boot, as we saw earlier on. But being HubNut, I mean, the incompetence isn't a show. It's not put on. It's not like he puts on this persona for the internet to get clicks or views. He's genuinely like that. And that's why we have a boot full of gaskets that, well, some of them aren't for this car, and others are not the ones that I was going to be changing in this job. The one we needed was this one. So that's what we're going to do now. And then I can get rid of it and get my C6 back. Because my wife's car started playing up and she was then forced to use the family car, which is what I was going to use because my C6 isn't here because it's in Wales. Hang on. Wales. That way. I haven't had a car, so I've had to use Betty as my transport for about 2 weeks now, and I thought, well, I'll share my thoughts with that. I'll do a POV drive and I'll share my thoughts on what Betty is like to drive. Sorry, Betty. Thirsty. That's the first thing I would say. Also, the transmission is starting to slip, starting to lose gears because it's starting to, well, run out of fluid basically. So I'm going to get on and change this gasket. And then hopefully, come Saturday, Betty will leave leak-free. You are now under Betty's undercarriage. That is bright, so I'm going to move out the way. So the problem we had is when the car was here about a year ago, or maybe a little bit more, it was leaking oil from here. And this is the transmission sump pan. Well, when it was in New Zealand, it was leaking oil from here, and Ian, along with Badgertronics, changed this gasket, replaced it, took the sump off, cleaned the filter out, changed the fluid, blah, blah, blah. New gasket, bang, stuck it back on. Still leaking when it got here, so you think, well, maybe they didn't do it right, or maybe something went wrong, or maybe it's a faulty part, whatever. There's a million things it could be. So I did it again for him. But since then, it was leaking again pretty much as soon as he got it. As soon as he got back, it was leaking, and I was dismayed because I used my special sealant. This stuff has 100% record, potentially, because it might not be this that's failed. You see, what I think's happening is the rear servo cover, which is this thing, which has basically got a piston in it with a spring and a plunger, and when the pressure builds up in there, it forces the piston into one of the bands. So this cover has a big spring under it, and there's a piston, and there were 2 O-rings. I hope those O-rings are okay, because I haven't got any. And it's not like I can just order some and expect to get them the same day. So yeah, I think what it is this cover's here, obviously there's pressure behind it, and it's got a gasket and it's wet under here. And I think what's actually been happening, and possibly what had happened way back when over in New Zealand, is this cover's leaking and it's running because shit flows downhill basically. It's running along here and accumulating to the lowest point. So it's running downhill and then dropping off. So it's possible the sump isn't leaking at all. Now, part of me thinks, well, I'm not going to mess about with the sump then, because this doesn't need sealant. This is a dry fit gasket. Technically, the sump should be as well, but part of me thinks I don't actually need to take the sump off because I've done that already. However, Ian lives a long way away, and if I don't redo that, and then he drives off and it leaks again, it's just going to get silly. And we've got a new gasket. That is one of the parts he supplied, so I'm going to do that again, but it may not actually need it. I've watched a video online from a chap in Australia. I think he was Australia, might have been New Zealand. His channel was called Yep That's It, which is quite a cool name for a channel. and he basically documents what is involved in doing that. And it's one of those jobs that is actually fairly simple, but you could balls up. And if we balls it up, we've only got one gasket. Now he drops the transmission. I'm going to try not to do that because I think there is enough room here. He said he dropped it for more room. He's not used to working on C6s, is he? To me, there's quite a lot of room there, so I'm going to leave that as it is. But if I have to drop it, I will. Obviously, I've got the exhaust, which I've already done the other month. So yeah, that'll be the first thing, is to this off, which will drain the fluid as well. There is no drain plug. It's just take that off into the pot, take that off, clean it up, same as before, and then take this off, and then focus on that bit, put all that back on. And then do this gasket, debate whether to put sealant on or not. I'm not 100% sure. You don't normally use sealant there. I did because it had a history of leaking, but that may be because it wasn't actually leaking, it was that. So, I don't know. Now, there is something very familiar about all this. That's when you undo the rear ones that it all starts, oh, it's starting to go. Starting to go in many places. Obviously she's going to get new fluid again. Tell you what, that's not as red as I would expect, and it's missing the pan, which is perfectly normal in these situations. It's a bit brown compared to what went in. Well, I suppose it's picking up the remedies. Like I said with the C6 videos, you can't, unless you use a flushing machine, you can't fully change the oil because there's so much of it in the torque converter and in the valve block and in all the other places it gets into. You can't fully change it like you can. I mean, even an engine oil change, you don't fully change it because there's bits of old oil caught in the engine. But really, this has acted as a flush. Just take these off a bit. There we go. Oh, a valve block. So there's the seal, which is still not in bad condition, to be honest, because it's such a messy job. You can't actually tell if it had failed or not, but I don't think it has. Yeah, it's not going to do it any harm changing this oil again, because it does come out pretty dark. And then I need to get that off. And before I do that, though, I'm going to give it a quick clean, because I don't want to get any dirt inside there. It's not too bad it washing off here, because it's not going to go up inside the valve block or anything. But yeah, I'm just going to give this a quick scrub. I'll clean this properly when it's off, but just the surrounding area, it wouldn't hurt just to give that a tickle now. The next thing is to remove this cover, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take out all the bolts, bar probably those two, because it's going to be spring loaded, so I'll have to release it slowly. I'm getting dripped on. The fella on the YouTube video, he said they have a habit of snapping these gaskets, sort of splitting in half, despite the fact that they're... Oh, okay, so that's why he drops the transmission. Looks like I am dropping the transmission down, or drilling a hole in the floor. Right, so I've removed the mounts. I've put some different bolts in here, and I've let it hang on its original mounts, just slightly lower down, hoping that I'll be able to get to these bolts. I've watched other people do it, and they just leave the whole thing hanging, but there we go. I don't know if I like that, because it's like, it's stressing the exhaust out, and various linkages and things in there. Oh, that's tight. I don't know if that's going to fit. Might need to come down just a tiny bit more, but oh, the transmission's heavy, who knew? Are you loose enough yet? Not really. Oh, kind of. Yes, there we go. Right, all fixings are out. Now I've got to be careful the piston, or the plunger doesn't fall out, but it might, apparently. Oh, there it is. There's the plunger, and there's the spring. Oh, isn't that a nice machine surface? One spring, very clean. One plunger, very clean. The band, the bit on the band that the plunger pushes against, is at the top, so it is supposed to sit in there at an angle. I have to be careful of that when I'm putting it back together. And that, oh, there you go. Well, that'll be that then. And that's the piston in there, this whole body. Right, well, I better clean that thing up. That surface is lovely. That's just going to need a quick wipe. And that'll be ready for the new gasket. So there's the assembly, and look at the gasket. It's just... Oops, it's got a bit of dirt in there already. It's a good start. Because, oh yeah, it's got these compressible... Whoa, that's a bit close. It's got that the little red bit there. Like a sort of dry seal compressible part of the gasket, which goes around the oil galley there and there. And just piston, when Matey did it on his video, the piston came out fairly easily. I'm slightly concerned that this one isn't, but nope. There we go, it's moved. I mean, in a way it is good, because it means it's got good compression. Oh, bloody hell. I mean, I could use compressed air, but it's just not going to have to. It's going to go flying everywhere. I have to put one finger over that port. There you go. Ooh! Oh, it's all dirty. Who knew? See? Ugh. With some little bits of metal floating in it, which isn't ideal, but probably normal. I haven't got any new O-rings, although an intake seal O-ring from a Peugeot 205 automatic does look fairly similar. Yeah, there is a bit of a ridge on that. I think the seal's okay, but as I say, there's not a lot I can do with them, so I'm not gonna muck around. They obviously have good compression because how difficult it was to get it out. It's pretty soft. It's in good condition, that one. The inner one's a bit harder. This one here, so I'm not going to muck about with it. It's obviously working. Right, one clean housing. Matey online, he said that his was scored inside. Well, this one's not actually that bad at all. Just running this over it lightly, just to see if it picks anything up, but no, that's actually really good. So that can go straight back in there. Now that I've cleaned it out, I can pop that back in, although I'll get some petroleum jelly, although it isn't actually dry. It has got, I will put some lube on it, but it isn't fully dry anyway. And then pop that back in there, lay the new gasket on the top, put it all back on. Might clean the bolts as well. I'll clean the back of it. It's not amazing. A lot of that is really baked on, but it's not too bad. Right, I shall refit that to that, and then go back and put the whole thing back on the car. There we go. She's in. And apparently the band's in there. Hey look, we're gonna get the band back together. Yeah, that little recess at the top, that's what the plunger goes on. And apparently they're a swine to fit and keep in place, which is always good. So I mustn't forget the spring and plunger. Plunger, so it pushes against. Oh yeah, locates up there. Doesn't need much to stay in there actually. But when Matey did it online, he absolutely lathered it in the stuff, and it worked for him. So I shall do the same. I'm not going to try and reinvent the wheel. There we go. Oh, new gasket. I almost forgot to put the gasket on it. I would invent swear words if that happened. Ford genuine parts, look. Only the best for Betty. Look at that, yeah, see, I would not be making that. I mean, I could try, but it would not work. And then I have to figure out which way round it went. There's the ports there. Port there, port there. So it's on like that. So you kind of got to put it on and hold it in place while fitting a bolt, none of which I've cleaned up. I knew there was something I'd forgotten to do. clean these manky bolts because I've got to put Loctite on them. So I've got a little ultrasonic cleaner thing here, which I found the other day because I completely forgot there was one here. And why you no work? Because that's not the right plug. That's a good start. What have I just plugged in then? Oh, hot glue gun. Look at it fizz. Now we wait. I was here the whole time. Done. And because they'll be clean, that means I can put Loctite on them. And that should hopefully stop them coming undone again. I've made an executive decision. That's the sump pan. Sans sealant. I'm not going to put sealant on it. The reason I put sealant on it last time was because it had already leaked. It had been done recently and then it had started leaking not long after. You know, it had been done in New Zealand and then it was leaking again before it was even back with Ian, which is why I did it here. So not many miles later, so I assumed perhaps the sump pan was slightly warped or they're an absolute bugger to seal up maybe, but it probably wasn't that. It was probably the servo cover gasket that had failed, making it look like this had failed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give Betty a chance to be as she was, to be OEM, not use any sealant, just a big fat rubber gasket. To be fair, they're in pretty good condition when they come off. With a bit of Loctite on the bolts. That's the other thing. Wasn't on the last time, was Loctite on the bolts. I don't know if I'll use spring washers or not. I think I'm just going to go with Loctite because I've degreased everything. If you couldn't degrease everything, then spring washers would be better, but I have cleaned it, so we'll go with some Loctite and we'll see how we get on. So I've cleaned all that, all degreased. Bolts, let's get a couple of these. These are all nice and clean now. Right, that's one in there. And one in there. Right. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to tighten these up to pull it mostly flat. And then I'll put all the other ones in with the Loctite, and then I'll take these two back out and put Loctite on them, because if I put them in with Loctite and then take them out again, then I'm wasting Loctite basically. All I need to do now is put the sump pan back on, complete with new seal, and then bleed in the gearbox. Although in order to do that, I'll have to research how to do it because I've forgotten. Right, and then so wee bit of Loctite on these. Yeah. You are not coming undone again. Probably because you won't go in to start with. And you get the idea with that. Right, we've fast forwarded to the next day because, well, time is a thing and I have a life. And the fluid is in the transmission. I haven't bled it in yet. I haven't set the level yet. There seems to be a number of conflicting ways of doing the level on these cars. And annoyingly, I can't remember what I did last time. Whatever I did last time, it worked because it was quite smooth afterwards. But yeah, I don't know. I've filled it until it spills when it's cold. Haven't started the engine since, haven't cycled gears. Quite a bit of it came out. So I'm expecting that level to drop. So yeah, it's filled while it's cold, as I say, but enough went in, probably, I don't know, 3-4 litres. Enough went in that if there was going to be a problem with a future leak, it would have happened by now. Perhaps not from the servo cover, because I imagine the engine has to be running for that, the gearbox has to be turning for that to be an issue. But certainly in terms of the sump, there appears to be nothing there, I don't think. I did look at it as I went past this morning. Didn't actually have the nerve to walk up and have a really good look at it, so I should probably do that now. Let's try that. Let's see if it's leaking. Moment of truth. I apologise for language if it is. Oh, yes! Bone dry. So there's a fair bit in there at the moment. It's definitely above the level of that sump seal. And there is nothing, I mean, it's bone dry everywhere. So what I'll do now is, as I say, I'll start the engine, run it through the gears. I may have to jack the back end up off the ground so it can actually get up to speed. I don't know, you don't have to with the C6, but, well, jacking the back end up off the ground with the C6 would be pointless because it's front wheel drive. Okay, let's start the engine, give it some cycles, and then probably check the level with the engine running. So we'll run the engine, go through some gears, and then with the engine running, pull the drain plug out and check the level, top it off, full till it spills. That should be enough. Give it a clean, and then test drive it, I suppose. That sounds good. That does sound good. All right, it's really dark in here at the moment. So we're going to cycle through the gears. Quality filming. Funny how it needs the button on some, but not all. Just going through them all. Oh. Well, not that these numbers make a difference. It's in one, regardless of whether it is here, but... Right, well, the handbrake's on. I'm going to leave the engine running and then go and check the level with the engine ticking over. And it may well need a top-up. Sorry, the light I was using just tried to kill me because I picked it up from under the car with my hands, and I've just been handling it and thinking, oh, that hurts. Stuck to the magnet. So, yeah. That light is a murder weapon. Only the person it's trying to murder is me. Alright, it's a bit of a job to see, but up there, behind the exhaust hanger, I don't know if you can see it there, there's a little, there's a plug, 16 mil head, and that is, that's the filler plug, so you fill till it spills from there. And exhaust, fantastically, is getting hot. Ow. Ow. I mean, you'd think I'd put some gloves on or something, but I mean, it could be that there's too much in there. There is that possibility, so I'll put this underneath just in case. Negative. There is not too much in there. Right. I'm gonna get my little bottle, which is makes filling transmission fluid much easier. Post it in top in the hole. Let it go basically until it leaks back out. Oh, you can just about see. Oh no. Oh, that's annoying. Oh, I think we just got away with it. Do you know why we got away with it? Because that's all the fluid I had. Oh, wow. Yeah, that couldn't have gone much better, to be honest. So that's taken 5 litres. So I really did get quite a lot out of that. Well, it's kicking some of it back out, but exhaust's holding up nicely though. There's no leaks at all. It's not the prettiest welding I've ever done, if I'm honest, but it was done in a hurry, and this, for some reason, this is a really difficult exhaust to weld to. I have to say, I think it's a moot point anyway, because it's not looking too clever, the rest of it. I don't think he's got long on it. And that's already been welded up once. And there is a, you give that a tap, that sounds pretty soft. It's actually got a little stain up there by that rust on that back box, so I think it's fair to say it's all on its way out. Just imagine it, it'll have like a Jap spec Bozuko, is it Bozuko? Bozuko? Yeah, all the pipes out the bonnet. Oh, the camera's got grub on it. I'm still waiting for it to stop dripping. You don't want to overfill it. Don't be tempted just to say, oh, that'll be alright, and stick the plug in. Overfilling an automatic transmission, bad. Finally stopped leaking. It's levelled off. I've done the plug up. I just need to give it a quick clean. Well, that's Betty just about done. Again. Transmission oil leak sorted for the second time, or third time if you include New Zealand. Exhaust leak sorted. Really, it only came in for a couple of hours of work, but it's been here for a month, I would say. Just because the parts weren't with the car, and you can't just buy them over the road. You have to order them from the other side of the world, so that's the downside of owning a car like this. In a couple of days, Ian's taken this to that Ford show thing. I don't know where that is or what it's about. I'll be at a Citroen show thing that day. But yeah, it's hopefully ready to go. Hopefully he'll enjoy it, and all it leaves me to do is go and drive it and make sure it actually works, because I'm assuming it does, and I've spent the last couple of weeks driving this thing really as my car, because he has my car, and you know, even with not enough fluid in it, it was okay, but I'll have to double check. We'll go out and we'll just sign it off, see what a Ford Fairmont AU is actually like. With a little look around and everything. Kind of things you don't see on HubNut, which it doesn't really hold much back, but yeah, it'll look at it from a fresh set of eyes, a famous car from an independent set of eyes, if you like, a non-biased set of eyes. So yeah, we'll pick it up in a bit.